Speakers. I would like to introduce the first one. The first speaker is Kieto Mahaniah, who leads the Global Thought Leadership Initiative at Help Logistics, connecting local expertise with international institutions to strengthen humanitarian supply chains worldwide. With roots across Central Europe and Africa and professional work in the US, Germany, and Finland, he offers a truly cross-cultural perspective. So please welcome Kieto Mahaniah.
All righty. Hello, everybody. Is it possible to get the speaker notes on the TV here? No? No speaker notes. All right. Hello, Ambrela Development Forum. My name is Kieto Mahaniah. I am the Operations Coordinator for the Thought Leadership Initiative of Help Logistics. And today, I will be talking to you about borders and bridges. Now, this is about how divides can be overcome. Now, I am very happy to be here in Bratislava. It always feels like a return whenever I get back here. My first time here was 2017. And why did I come in 2017? Well, that goes back a little bit whiles back. My great-great-grandfather comes from Slovakia. He lived far up north in the High Tatras, and he was a tailor. And if you're unfamiliar with the High Tatras, they're quite intense, quite extreme, quite beautiful, but not really suited for tailors, especially when his specialty was suits. Not quite like mine, probably, in the 1910s, but he did specialize in making high-end suits. And so he defaulted to going here, to Tatranska Lomnica, which was one of the resort towns where some of the wealthy elite would go so he could sew suits for them. He would enter through the service gates of these beautiful hotels and tailor them suits. And he settled down in that area in Hunkovka, with his family, where my great-grandfather was born, who became a pastor, and then my grandfather himself, who you can see right there in the middle is my grandfather in that picture, who, by the way, called me last night as I was going to bed to make sure I told the story correctly. However, as many are aware of in the 30s and 40s, it became difficult, especially for the German-speaking minorities here, the Carpathian Germans, to stay in the area. And so they had to leave, they had to flee. And they fled to Germany, to southern Germany, where they had some difficulty. They were outsiders, they were different. They actually had police had to escort them into the houses to be hosted. They stayed in abandoned military barracks. This was a particularly difficult time for the family, but they settled into Germany. They enjoyed it. And 80 years later was the first time we were able to go back. 80 years I drove with my grandparents. You can see me here in that big hotel, all dressed up fancy with a suit on then. With my grandparents, we got to see our family grave, the Schneck family grave. 80 years it took before the family was able to return. Now, why am I telling you this story? There is something in the modern world about divides that are recognized by everybody. There are divides geopolitically. There are divides culturally and politically. But this story gave me hope. My history gave me hope that these borders can change. The divides can be overcome with the right movement. And so it gives me this feeling that divides can heal. Divides within systems are no different. Right, whether we're talking about the difference between donors and local governments and NGOs, or if we're talking about the development and humanitarian nexus, right? We have these divides, but how true are they really? When in fact, very often they use the same methods, they both support communities. It's all about how people interact. And very often it's about power dynamics between actors. And so working with Help Logistics for the last 10 or 15 years, Help has been working with humanitarian organizations to do pro bono consulting to really develop their technical capacities within the supply chain and logistics space. But there were some challenges that they came across that could not be fixed with just capacity building, with just technical training or organizational redevelopment. There were some challenges that are greater than that had to be addressed at the policy level. Now, why do these challenges matter? Well, working with the humanitarian supply chain organizations, recently an article came out to reinforce the fact that up to 74% of the total cost is supply chain. This is from an article written by Stump, Wackelbinger, and Bessu. Now, as we're looking at these supply chains, we're realizing that the challenges that we are facing are not just ours. These are systemic. And so we started to work with regional actors to try to identify how to overcome these challenges. And we identified a theme called localization. I'm sure you've all heard of it, right? Localization can be seen as a lot of different things. And some say, is it just buying locally? Is it just being in the local markets? No, localization is about shifting power away towards those who have the most contextual knowledge and to make the biggest difference. And so we started to ask ourselves this question: how do we bridge the gap between policy and practice in humanitarian localization? We've heard already today lots of words and commentary about the policy, about the grand bargain, about the humanitarian reset of localization, local empowerment, but how do we actually do it? How do we do it in practice? And so we started to meet with local community leaders, thought leaders, we call them, all over East Africa, to work with them after having projects, after hearing them speak, to see how we can actually move forward. What ensued were intensive hours of brainstorming, structured analysis, deep dive into 80 years of relationships between international and local actors. And there were a lot of outputs from that, right? But I want to highlight one quote in particular that one of our thought leaders mentioned in East Africa. Local actors already doing most of the delivery. What we need is recognition and resources. Earlier, one of the speakers mentioned legitimacy, which is such an important point. And so when working with these actors, we identified 3 primary challenges, which will come up on the screen now. First are power asymmetries. How do different people from different regions with different funding and different backgrounds work together without intense power dynamics? How do we move beyond transactional and relationships and just having implementation partners? How do you have true partners in this context? The second challenge was rigid donor systems. Rigid systems entrench exclusion and dependency through restrictive funding or compliance models. There's a risk that it's just short-term. There's a lack of trust in how these are actually built. And the third and final challenge that we'll highlight is the internal capacity straits of organizations themselves. Due to some of the previous challenges, organizations may not have the internal capacity to push beyond the programming that they're currently working on and advocate for greater change. And so I have here a call to action. Based on these challenges, based on working with these local organizations, how to actionably move forward. What objectives and operational insights can we gain for different stakeholders? Now, if you are one of these stakeholders, I expect you to write some things down as we go through this. And if you're not one of these stakeholders, write it down and tell your friends who are these stakeholders, or mention it over lunch, right? Which I hope is coming next. First off, donors, right? Flexible, direct, multi-year funding. This is not new. But how do you actually do it? You need to harmonize your due diligence. You need to include local actors in your policy making. Are you developing a new framework? Who is it for? Are they in the room during the development? How long is your funding going to be for? Do people have sunset clauses, which is, do they have an intentional way of stepping away after the project? Next, INGOs, UN agencies. It's paramount to have equitable partnerships, to recognize local actors not only as implementation partners, but as co-authors in the development of the programs themselves. To do this, there needs to be a recognition that not only formal legitimacy is important, but that social legitimacy, that access to local communities is just as important. To the policymakers, to the governments, it is important that you align regulation with organizations. That registration processes are streamlined. If they're annual, make them easy to access. If they're biannual, make them learn from the previous year. Make sure there's tax incentives, not only for international players, but also for your local organizations when you're talking procurement or implementation. More longer term, it's important to certify local actors as legitimate partners at the greatest scale. When you have a UN agency there that you've certified because they're UN, make sure you also have your local communities represented in the room. And much like this forum here, policymakers need to also convene inclusive platforms that link all of these actors together. And of course, how can we not speak without speaking about those on the ground themselves, the NGOs? Right? It's important to invest in their organizations for structural legitimacy. Develop standard operating procedures, human resources, digital tools, share financial data, impact stories proactively so that you build trust with the global communities. Engage in peer learning among yourselves to develop feedback mechanisms and data sharing platforms. Participate in storytelling and policy forums to shape narratives. And down the road, when funding loosens up, becomes more long-term, building technically sound teams with mentorship, with intentional and targeted recruitment can elevate organizations beyond that. All of these concepts together boil down to these three messages. We need to reframe the way we see leadership, that it's not a top-down approach, that it really is everyone in the room being at the table, that we invest not only in the services that our partners provide, but also in the systems to make them move forward. If an organization can only live as long as the program's funding, is it really sustainable development, sustainable investment? You need to invest in the systems, which sometimes are not the programs themselves, but the HR, the IT, the organizational development. And then align your incentives with equity. NGOs, UN agencies, everyone works off of how their funding is structured. So it's important that you prioritize your incentives to actually reflect that, of having those collaborative, cooperative partnerships. And so through this, the hope is that we can reposition power. And this is possible. Change is possible. We've seen that over many years, over many lifetimes. And hope in this realm is particularly possible when power is shared, when local leaders shape the systems that they already sustain. Now, it took 80 years for my grandfather to return back to where he had once lived. And the UN also has had 80 years to work on this. And we have the chance now, as a humanitarian system, as a development nexus, to act so that communities don't have to wait multiple decades, multiple generations to reclaim what is already theirs. Thank you very much. If you have more questions about the content, you can find me here.
Thank you. Thank you, Kieto, very much for your uplifting message that divides can be healed. Our next speaker is Eva Kozlovska, Managing Partner at Qubit Labs and the visionary founder of Women in Tech Ukraine. Through mentorship and educational programs, she empowers women from diverse backgrounds to enter and grow in IT sector. She also shares her expertise through international collaborations, webinars, and keynote talks that open new doors for tech professionals. Please welcome Eva Kozlovska.
Hi, I hope you hear me fine. Thank you, Ambrela Forum, for having me here today. I would like to welcome you to my journey. I'm on my way 9 years, but I will tell you a little bit more about this in details. So, who am I actually? I'm starting my own IT company 9 years ago. I started in NGO Women in Tech Ukraine 7 years ago. I started to be a mom almost 2 years ago, and I am balancing every day between all of these activities. I hope it's successfully, but we will see on the results. So, and also I'm trying to ruin stereotypes in Ukraine for our women, so they can be more confident, they can see more opportunities which is there, they can give themselves a chance to change their lives, their careers, and choose their interests and their motivation. So what I want to talk about today, my personal career steps was, I was recruiter, then IT recruiter, which is pretty big difference actually, maybe it looks like not. Then I was a head of talent, and then I became a company owner and volunteer organization Women in Tech Ukraine, actually, which I want to focus today on this part of my life. How I decided to start this NGO. Like a long time ago, like 10 years or maybe less, I came to Web Summit to Lisbon like a visitor to see international experience, IT. I just launched my company and I was wondering what is happening outside of Ukraine, what kind of expertise. And then I saw that there are in Europe a lot of supportive organizations for women, like Women in Tech Sweden or Women in Tech Portugal, and they support their women community, they give opportunities, they show collaborations and everything to support their women on their journey to their new career in IT or no, but focus on IT, of course. So when I came back from Lisbon, from Web Summit, I decided that why we don't have something like this in Ukraine? We should to build some opportunities, because it was at the time it was a problem to hire people because it was not enough expertise and a lot of opportunities for developers and IT engineers. So I decided that maybe women don't want or don't come to IT industry just because they don't know that they can. Then we started to speak with women, and we understood that we have a lot of stereotypes because of our history in Ukraine. We have a lot of stereotypes in our head. Why I can't do that, why I will not fit that role, why I will not balance, why I just better to sit and do nothing. So that is why we started from motivational events. It was online events, and we're trying to show positive success stories of successful women who built their career in IT from scratch, what kind of challenges they had, how they solved that situation, what kind of situations they have now, and how all women who want can join this industry as well. So from our first event we organized, we had like 400 visitors. 400. We was non-name organization. It was 3 speakers speaking about themselves, about their career, answer questions about CVs, about opportunities, about challenges. 400 in one city. It was huge. That is why we decided that, okay, we will continue to do that because people need it. And what? COVID came. That's it. No offline events. So we decided, okay, what we can do now? We have a limit of our opportunities, how we can solve it, how we can continue to do that. And we started our YouTube channel. We started our educational YouTube channel with a lot of speakers and experts in Ukraine who try to show opportunities to women in Ukraine. We discuss details of professionals, of positions, what is marketing in digital, what is development, what is engineering, what is the difference. So everybody actually who are interested in this industry, they can go to our channel, watch our webinars and understood actually, do they want to spend time on it? Do they want to find educational program? Do they want to join this profession, or it's not for them? Because a lot of people they think that want to go into IT, but in real life they don't want, they just have a friends who was working in IT or is currently working in IT, that is why they're interested in this industry, but it's not their opportunities, it's not their career, which is normal. But IT is something they are using every day. I'm using IT solutions and tools every day, and I'm sure you doing the same. Even now, we are watching this presentation with IT tools, so we are using this. So we need to know about this to be more effective in this. So it was nice, interesting, but we feel that it's not enough. It's like very important what we do, but we want more. And we started to focus on mentorship platform. Like 2 years ago, we launched mentorship platform. On this mentorship platform, you can book your personal mentor face-to-face meeting with expert. You can join group mentorship programs. And in last 2 years, we requested more than 4,000. We received more than 4,000 requests from women all over Ukraine to join our mentorship program, technical mentorship program, which is a huge number. That means that they need this. That means that it's work. And we understand that now mentorship is like new way of education. It's like it can replace education in general, but it can help to build stronger knowledges, to cut your time with experience like people already had before you and can share with you, can inform you, can alarm you about some potential problem. So before you made these mistakes, you already know how to manage it, which is, where is my presentation? So, yeah, this is what we launched, and we're very proud because a lot of women use it and they're happy with it, and we receive very many positive feedbacks. Then, what we started to do, every year, 2 years on roll, we have education program online for all women who want to join with sign language interpreters. So inclusive education program, which is ongoing now. Actually, today we have translation. What is it about? It's more than 35 experts, women from IT or from government departments who work in education area or legal area. We created like more than 40 meetings during 2 months about everything possible what can be interesting for women now. How to start business, how business should work, legal parts, what kind of profession in IT will be actual this next and after 5 years. We open more information about AI technologies because a lot of people who don't work in IT, they're scared of them. So we try to show them during this educational program how they can use it, how it can be strong side of their experience, not danger, because a lot of us think that maybe AI will replace me, so we show that no, it will not happen. So this is what we have now, and international experience. So we try to support women in tech in Europe in general, and last year we was in Perspective conference for women in Poland, where it was like 10,000 visitors, and a lot of, like 90% of them was women, and we shared our experience, we shared what our women wanted, what they requested, what they needed to have to build a successful career. And last but not least, it's not all our activities, just the organizer give me a limit of slides, that is why I have just this. Recently, we finished education program for 30 women from 5 Ukrainian regions, and they became solar settlers. And that was a big project with People in Need Ukraine, with Greenpeace Ukraine, and Women in Tech Ukraine. We received like 300 requests for this program, but we had specific requirements what people need to have to join. And we spent like 4 months for education program. Now 30 women can work like solar sellers, and they actually do. Some of them came to us to recycle, reskill. Some of them came to upskill. Some after our training, after our education course, some of them found job in this area, which is good because in Kharkiv or Nikolaev. We already heard a lot today what kind of needs they have, that people need to have a new career. For that positions we need now during the war. So it helped us to rebuild and renovate our buildings, hospitals and schools with solar, but not enough people who can settle it. So that is the solution, what we see now. And that's what we successfully did. And what we understood during this all way, like 7 years, what we understand that everybody need to have opportunities. Doesn't matter if they will catch it or they will use it, but they need to know that they have it. And it's their decision. I would like to try. I believe in myself. But we should understand that now in Ukraine, it's psychologically hard situation. A lot of people don't even search for opportunity because they don't have resource, like psychological resource for that. So that is why we're trying as much as possible to show them that life continue and we're here and we need to do something to help our country to survive in these hard times. And I hope something work what we do. So that is about my journey. Thank you to be with me, and let's create opportunities together. My contacts, if you're interested to join Women in Tech Ukraine or help with mentorship. Thank you for attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva, very much. And our final speaker is Zuzana Ulman, a humanitarian worker and founder of Step In, with a background in both medicine and social work. She has led medical missions across the Middle East, coordinating assistance for refugees and displaced communities. Since the start of the war in Ukraine, she has been based in Dnipro, where Step In deploys mobile medical teams. So please, Zuzana, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. My name is Zuzana Ulman, and I am the co-founder and leader of Step In, a humanitarian NGO working in healthcare sector. During the last 12 years, I've been working as a medical doctor. Then I led the medical teams, trained doctors, evaluated medical programs, and especially I have witnessed firsthand the inspiring dedication and incredible challenges faced by humanitarian workers. We've been already talking today that the importance of the mental health support for the survivors of humanitarian disaster is clear to everyone in this room. According to WHO, 1 in 5 people in post-conflict settings develop a mental health condition such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, schizophrenia, or a combination of it. In Ukraine alone, for example, it's estimated that over 9.5 million people may be experiencing a mental health condition as a result of this war. So mental health is essential for individuals and communities to recover after trauma, and it is rightly becoming one of the top priorities of humanitarian aid. But what about us? What about humanitarian workers? A comprehensive study, which was published just last year, shows that between 10 to 39% of humanitarian workers suffer from depression. Another 9 to 32% from burnout, and up to 1 in 4 from PTSD. Perhaps the most striking finding is the high prevalence of hazardous alcohol use, affecting 60 to 50% of us. These wide ranges reflect different study methods, populations, and measurement tools, but together they leave no doubt that this work leaves marks on us. The vast majority of humanitarian workers come from the countries where a given crisis is happening, often being members of the affected population. But today, I would like to talk a bit more about my expatriate colleagues, those of us who deploy from abroad to work in crisis settings. Most members of my international team come from the Western countries, many specifically from Western Europe. We have worked together in Middle East for years, and as the war in Ukraine erupted, we have joined humanitarian efforts there. And it is only in Ukraine that I was forced to confront the topic of mental health of my international team. And I was immediately presented with a puzzle. In Iraq, we have worked with survivors of genocide who have experienced unimaginable horrors and now live in isolated camps in desert. In Ukraine, we are among the familiar green fields in a familial cultural setting, working with people uprooted by war. So, why is Ukraine harder for us? Shouldn't we be coping better here, closer to home? This question has stayed with me for the last years, as I have watched our team and reflected on our experiences across contexts. I've come to see that several interconnected factors shape our mental health as humanitarian workers, especially when we operate in emotionally intense or personally resonant environments. Today, I would like to share some of these reflections, not as final answers, but as observations that might help us better understand what we face when the crisis unfolds close to home. So what is it about Ukraine that makes this experience more challenging? One likely cause could be the nature of the danger. In Iraq, for example, the danger was more localized, theoretically predictable. The bad guys would have to sneak through the military checkpoint to kidnap or kill us and target us specifically, unlikely, though possible. In Ukraine, drones fly over our heads at night, and increasingly so during the day too. They too have better targets than our village house, so the probability that they fall on us is also low, but the danger feels close. Air alert sirens, sounds of air defense working, and distant explosions make the threat feel constant and unpredictable. Science shows that unpredictable danger triggers stronger stress response. Even a guaranteed bad outcome causes less anxiety than uncertainty. But this is not so straightforward either. We all have different safety profiles. Some people are more affected by physical dangers and others by social threats, for example. Some react stronger to unpredictable risks, others to targeted ones. When someone chooses specifically to harm you, the violence is personal. For me, for example, being kidnapped is more scarier than being killed by a random airstrike in Ukraine, even if the latter is more probable. It affects my sense of trust and control. So yes, the nature of threat plays a role, but other factors matter too. I think I can say that the crisis in Ukraine feels more personal for many of us. Ukrainians are not only people who need help, they are our people. They are our immediate neighbors, we have a lot in common. Every destroyed house looks like a house we could live in. Every separated family looks so much like our family. So perhaps this closeness removes a psychological buffer. The extreme suffering we faced in Iraq may have affected us less because we could maintain some degree of emotional distance. In Ukraine, everything feels too familiar. We cannot help but relate, and perhaps that makes it harder to stay resilient. Studies show that a sense of purpose protects mental health. When we feel that our work is meaningful, it motivates us and strengthens our resilience. But too much identification with that purpose can have the opposite effect. When purpose becomes fused with identity, when our why consumes our who, it can start to harm us. I didn't tell you clearly at the beginning that I don't have a definite answer to my puzzle. So if you were waiting for one, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Not everyone wants to talk about how they feel, but from what I've seen, all the reasons I mentioned play some part for me and my colleagues. And of course, there are many other personal and contextual factors, because mental health is complex, and so we are. So what really protects us as humanitarian workers? Green spaces helps, predictability helps, and understanding the nature of threats helps. But research suggests more. Another, one of the most recently published studies on the topic, identified 5 components of resilience in disaster and emergency aid workers. The researchers analyzed data from around the world and found that these factors fall into 2 main groups: personal trait and external processes. Personal traits include our overall health status, both mental and physical, our essence and personality, including the sense of purpose, which I mentioned earlier, and our competencies. The process factors involve the support platforms around us, from families to colleague and organizational backing, and the nature of the job itself. What stands out to me in this research is how it reflects what we see in the field: a link between purpose and resilience. That professional commitment to meaningful work can act as a psychological shield, helping us interpret challenges as meaningful rather than purely stressful. But this protection works best when it stays balanced, when we remain connected to our work without letting it completely define who we are. I see in our team that purpose really keeps us going. We see firsthand the results of our work, and we know why we want to do this. And I think that it also helps to support us better, to support each other better, because we kind of speak the same language also at this level. And crisis will not go away. And if we want to have a competent and importantly dedicated humanitarian workforce, we must not forget that they too are humans who need support to keep moving forward. To be able to help others, we must first be okay ourselves. So as leaders, it's our responsibilities to go beyond physical safety and resources. We need to help our teams develop and maintain their internal compass. If they feel their work is meaningful, they have a strong shield to protect them from the many challenges they face. Because at the end of the day, it's not about whether we work in deserts of Iraq or the fields of Ukraine. It's about whether we can answer why we are there at all. When we can, we find that our why is indeed stronger than our where. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Zuzana, so much. I think that talking about mental health and resilience is crucial these days, not only for humanitarian workers, but for the whole society. Now, let me welcome you for a lunch. And then for those who will have to leave us, I just would like to remind you once again that you might join us for our night owl session, which will start at 9 o'clock at Umilka Pub. It will be really a very nice experience for more informal discussions. So see you at 2 o'clock, again, here to resume our discussions. Enjoy the lunch.